All right, we are going live. Okay, we are live now.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. We're just gonna wait for a few minutes for everyone to join in. Let me see. Let me open up the link and see. Yeah, looks good. We are live.
All right.
Yeah, we're gonna maybe let's wait for like 2 minutes to kind of like let everyone sink in.
Sure.
Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining on a Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Um, if you guys have like seen our previous webinars, this is just a uh, webinar we do on different types of topic. If you guys are new, welcome and welcome to our live webinar. We try to do a webinar almost every month. We try to bring in like new speakers and cover different types of topics, immigration, uh, uh, coding, a lot of different types of stuff. But yeah, just gonna pull up the, yeah, people are joining. Um,
Hello, everybody. I'm Tony Shu. I'm an immigration attorney, founder and CEO of Imingo, a immigration technology startup. I'm here to give you a brief introduction of H1B and H1B changes this year. And you'll have a chance to ask me any questions at the end of this webinar.
Sweet. Thanks a lot, actually, Tony, for doing this with us. We have been thinking of doing like something together for a while. So I'm glad that we're doing it.
Yes, it's personally rewarding for me too, because I've been through the H1B cycles many times and also other types of visa. So I know the pain of going through immigration myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wish there was somebody there to guide me when I was in undergrad trying to do H1B or in law school. Yeah.
For sure. This March 4th is going to be like a historic moment for us, though, like that we're doing something together.
Oh yeah. Just working together. It's exciting.
Yeah, I think we can probably start. It's like 9:02. Yeah, okay. Let me just kind of like share my screen and
I see my face.
okay, sweet, awesome. All right, so welcome everyone to our webinar on basically recent changes in H1B rules and strategies to prepare for it. This is the first webinar we are doing where we are actually bringing an immigration attorney to answer any kind of legal questions you have. Yeah, we're just excited to get started. Anytime you can just type your questions in the YouTube live. We will be sequentially answering your questions. And yeah, I think we can just dive into it. So before starting, I'll just go through like why we are doing this webinar. So first of all, there is a lot of deficit in like guideline for the legal processes for immigration in US. There aren't abundant resources online. There are some resources, but those are not customized. So there is in general a lot of confusion in this whole a lot in the international students, in the immigration, all the immigrants on how to basically get immigration in US. Um, uh, Tonight's topic will be there have been also a lot of changes in H1B visa filing system, which we'll be primarily covering tonight. And there are some common pitfalls which we'll be talking about, which ones to avoid. And as you know that in the current situation, the immigration rules are a little bit more stringent. So we just wanted to basically see that what are the pathways we can take to bypass those. So yeah, and I'll just talk a little bit about who are we. We are a coding and job hunting bootcamp, which is primarily focused on getting international students and immigrants hired. The reason for us to start Get Me Hired is that we have all been international students before. We came in US as international students, and we went through the process of getting a job in a foreign country. We didn't have any professional network here. We didn't have any US experience. We didn't know what the immigration rules are. I wish that we had something structured like this before. So basically, to tackle all these problems, we started Get Me Hired. So our speaker is Tony Shu, and Tony is an immigration attorney who has been who is an immigrant herself, and she has specific focus or specific experience in working with H1 visa, O1 visa, and employment visas. And she's also the co-founder and CEO of Imingo. I would like to invite Tony to basically kind of like at this point to take the lead and just talk a little bit about herself, her journey in US. And yeah, just let's welcome Tony. And hi, Tony. I'll just pass the ball to you.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Tony, and I am an immigration attorney based in New York. I have my own practice practicing immigration law, and also recently I built this technology company called Imingo that the aim and wish to start this company was to streamline and automate a lot of the paperwork in immigration. So immigrants could focus on strategizing about their immigration as opposed to just being drowned in paperwork. This was partially inspired by my own journey in the US. I came to the US when I was 17 by myself, and I went to Tulane University in New Orleans. At the time, I wasn't worried about getting a job or anything really. I just wanted to come here and study from China. And I ended up studying philosophy, which wasn't a hugely marketable major, but I wanted to have fun, so I studied philosophy. Eventually, I faced the H1B or other immigration issues, and I told myself, well, you got to do something that's marketable. So I went to law school. And from then, I've been focused on technology law, business law, and immigration law. Sort of the focus was to address my own immigration concerns and try to use that experience to help others. So today, we're going to talk about H1B visa, and boy, it's a lot. I have personally filed, well, not personally filed for myself, but my previous employers have filed for H1B on my behalf. And I have entered H1B lottery twice, and I have failed. I have then used other alternative paths to sponsor myself in the US, and eventually I figured out a way to stay and got onto the green card path. So what is H1B visa? It is, now let's wait for the PPT. H1B visa is a visa for specialty workers. What does specialty workers mean? It's basically anyone who has special skills like engineers, scientists, or designers who have had a bachelor's degree or equivalent or higher. And that is the minimum requirement for H1B usually. There are specific rules to follow when you want to check your eligibility for H1B. And we've built something simple to check on our website, which I will show you guys later. Basically, you answer a few questions and check if you or your major or your job title qualifies you for H1B visa. So H1B usually limits you to work for only the employer that sponsored you. Meaning once you apply for H1B and win the lottery, you can only work for that one employer. You cannot do freelance work or do part-time work selling hot dogs or anything. You can, in some instances, apply for a concurrent H1B, which entitles you to work for a second employer, but you should talk to a lawyer before you do that. And the duration of H1B is usually 3 years, and you can extend it up to 6 years. So before your 3 years run out, you can extend it to 6 years. There is, again, many exceptions to this rule. For example, if you apply for a green card by the 5th year, then you can get a 1-year renewal every year after the 5th year until your green card decision is made, until the USCIS has decided your green card is approved. So again, you should talk to somebody, and a lot of online tutorials will tell you it's 3 to 6 years. The answer is not as simple as that. There's usually an exception, and talking to an immigration attorney is important for that. And the next point is about immigration quota or immigration cap. So we hear this cap concept fairly often. It's established by the Immigration Act of 1990. It sets 65,000 foreign nationals as the maximum cap or quota for H1B visa every year. And there is an additional 20,000 for US masters from public or private non-for-profit institutions. So usually if you have a master's degree, what the 20,000 cap exception does for you is that you get to roll in the lottery twice. So before this year's change, actually before last year's change, you, as a master's student, you could roll twice, but first you roll with the 20,000 first. And then if you didn't get picked, you then roll with everybody else, the 65,000 foreign nationals. And again, there are specific requirements for a US master's degree. You can't really earn a master's from a private for-profit institute. For example, there are master's degrees awarded by like Academy of Hair Design or like Center of Massage. You can get a master's in massage, but you can't then use that degree to get yourself into the master exemption cap. So be very careful what kind of school you choose. If you're still an F1 student in undergraduate, you want to make sure that whatever major you choose and whatever degree you get is qualifying you for the maximum H1B chance. So the next point is about new changes to H1B 2021. And this is what gives a lot of people a lot of anxiety. We've been hearing news ever since last year. This changes rollout. Everybody is saying like H1B this year is going to be bonkers. H1B this year is going to be crazy. It is not that crazy. Actually, there are a lot of advantages and disadvantages. So briefly, the reason causing this change is Trump's executive order. Trump in 2017 has issued executive order called the Buy American and Hire American Executive Order. And basically, he asked the DHS and the USCIS to enact new rules to make American workers more competitive and make H1B more geared towards highly skilled workers. So in response to Trump's demand, the DHS and USCIS has implemented this new rule where employers have to register for their employees before April 1st in an online system. So before this new rule, the way it goes when you want to apply for H1B is you have to prepare entire petition, meaning you have to like fill in all the forms and then get your employer's labor certificate ready and then file and hire a lawyer and pay for like $8,000 total or something like that. And then your whole package will be reviewed by USCIS to determine if you get chosen. Now it's not that hard anymore. So now you just have to go online to the DHS website or USCIS website and then pay $10 registration fee. And the employer has to pay the $10 registration fee. And then you get a ticket, you get a lottery ticket. That's it. And then the window for applying is between March 1st and March 20th, meaning before these 20 days window, you have to register. Your employer has to register for you. And then after this 20-day registration ticket window has closed, the USCIS will run the lottery and you will know the result on March 31st, like before April 1st. And once you know the results, you can start preparing for the petition. So the advantage of this is that there are, the cost is obviously a lot lower. You don't have to pay, what, $7,000 to prepare for the petition. You can just pay $10 and see if you get chosen and know the result by April 1st. The disadvantage to people applying for H1B, though, is that well, there's going to be a lot more people applying for it, because as an employer, from an employer standpoint, before, it's way too expensive to apply for somebody. I'm going to have to shell out my own money just to have a chance of having a foreign worker work for me. But now I can just pay $10 and, well, it's just a ticket. It's literally just a cheap ticket. So the prediction is that the winning rate for H1B lottery is going to be a lot lower from before. But again, we don't know this because this is the first year that this rule has implemented. So after the lottery results has been published, those get chosen will obviously be very happy, and those who don't get chosen, at the very least, don't have to pay a lot of money. That's the best thing about this. But if you don't get chosen, you don't have to shell out a lot of money to pay for your attorneys. So if you get chosen, then starting from April 1st, you have 90 days to file your petitions. And these include making sure that your employers file the labor certificate. Basically, this certificate shows that they are in good labor condition. They can afford you as a high-skilled worker. This is to deter anybody who's just a little company that doesn't have any money, who's sort of like a shell company used to sponsor H1Bs. This LCA labor certificate condition certificate deters those people from immigration fraud, basically. And then until June 30th is the last day your petition can be filed. And then after that, there are a few possible responses from the USCIS. They could send you a notification that you got approved. They could send you a notification you got denied. But usually, if they want to deny you, they will send you a RFE, a request for evidence. And this will list reasons why they don't think your application is sufficient. They will usually have things like, give me your bank statements, or like, give me your transcript. Basically, they're not convinced that you qualify, or the job that you apply for is related to your degree. And they will specify in the RFE what you need to do in order to get yourself approved. That's it for the second question.
Wait,
there's a okay.
I actually didn't know that, like, there is. So basically what I understand, that you just pay that $10, like that's the starting point, right?
Right, for this year. You just pay $10, but your employer has to pay the $10. You cannot pay the $10.
Got it.
So
it's really cheap. Like, it's so good to just have.
Right. It's a lot cheaper, and it's much easier it should be, in theory, much easier to find an employer who's willing to pay $10 for you. Mm-hmm. But as I said, a lot more people are going to do this. So if it was 50% chance winning before, it would be a lot lower now.
Got it.
And the last change is the US Masters. So as I said before, before this change, the master's degree students enter the 20,000 slots first. And then whoever didn't get chosen will enter the lottery again for the 65,000. Now they reversed it. So the master's students gets in the lottery with everybody else first, gets in for the 65,000 cap. And then the ones that don't get chosen will get into 20,000 slots. For our purposes, this just means that there will be more master's slots. It's estimated that there will be about an increase of 5,300 master's students that get chosen this way. So slightly better for those with master's degrees or above. Mm-hmm. Okay, what happens after I get chosen to the lottery? What are my options if I didn't get chosen? As I said before, I did this a little out of order. If you get chosen for the lottery, then within 90 days, you must file your entire petition, including your labor certificate, labor condition certificate. And it's a lot easier if your employer has sponsored somebody else for H1B before, because they have filed the labor certificate. But if they've never done this before, then it is important that your employer start doing this as soon as possible, because it's a lot of documents that need to be collected for them to get the certificate. If you are on OPT, once you get chosen for the lottery, then you can go back to your school and then talk to your school official, the International Students Office, to receive what's called a cap gap extension. When it means that once you file for H1B, since you're already on OPT, your OPT is probably going to run out before October 1st. But if you file the cap gap extension, it will allow your OPT to be extended to October 1st when your H1B starts. And also, if you didn't get chosen, one situation is to get a RFE, in which case you should definitely talk to a lawyer to submit the evidence that's requested from you. Or if you just get a flat out rejection, some people could go for the litigation route, meaning you sue USCIS. That's like an extremely fringe case, but it's possible, and some people have succeeded in the past. You tell them that is an unlawful decision and you challenge them in court. And that's going to be a lot more expensive because the attorney would have to go to court for you. Or if you're looking for alternative routes, there are other types of visas available for you depending on your situation. Like, for example, if you are a treaty country to the US, if you are from a treaty country to the US, like Spain, Portugal, most European countries, then you can apply for E2 visa, which is a lot easier. Or if you are a artist or renowned scientist, engineer, and you're really accomplished, but somehow don't know about the O1 visa, then you should definitely consider the O1 visa, which is a lot easier and entitles you to a lot more benefit than H1B. Or if you are none of the above and you still don't want to stay in the country, and I've personally done this before, which is you enroll yourself as a student again. You just dramatically change trajectory. Like I remember I was studying law and then I failed H1B that was sponsored by my law firm. And it was like, well, I don't really have many other options. I guess I'll go back to school. And I went back to school to study engineering. And that was a major life change, but it did pave way for my future to doing what I'm doing right now. So yeah, do not despair if you didn't get chosen. There are many other ways that you can stay. It is important that once you get rejected, there is a time limit on your stays. Usually if you're on OPT, and I was on OPT, there's a 60-day grace period, which means that if you didn't get chosen and your OPT runs out, you have 60 days to figure your shit out, or you get kicked out of the country. So it's important that you find a solution in those 60 days, and usually talking to an immigration attorney or someone in your situation before is very helpful, both psychologically and legally. How do I find future sponsor for H1B? And what do I do if my employer doesn't know about H1B or immigration? Okay, so how do you find a sponsor for H1B? This I did not know when I was looking for jobs, and I wish somebody had told me this before. You need to Google and you need to research and make a list. You need to look for employers that have sponsored people H1B before. And there are databases available online that shows employers that have sponsored people before. Just Google H1B visa sponsor database. And then make a list you can sort by geographic location. You could sort by type of job or job title, and you could sort by years. And then you can find a list of people like Google, Amazon, certain law firms, Deloitte, that have sponsored people before. And they're much more likely to sponsor you, provided that you meet their criteria, because they know this. Make a list and just apply to a bunch of those. There's also other ways, like find an internship. And this is a route that I've done myself. finding internship is the only way to really build a relationship with your employer that doesn't know about H1B, because chance of someone hiring you and sponsoring you for immigration without knowing who you are or how good you are is very, very low. So find an internship, preferably when you're still an OPT or CPT, and way before your OPT expires, and try to impress your employer enough that they will move heaven and earth for you. And the third option is much less common, which is find a niche recruiting company or a consulting firm or recruiting firm that specifically caters to employers that want to hire foreign workers. I've gone through this route as well. I've gone through a recruiting company that only hire Chinese immigrants. And this is because they have clients that need Chinese immigrants, like Bank of China or other banks of China. So make sure that you reach out to these recruiting companies if you've gone through the other options and have exhausted your options, and then tell them, hey, this is my resume and I need someone who specifically sponsors people of my background. Find them for me. There's other options, like, for example, going to get a university job, because university jobs and nonprofit jobs can make you exempt from the immigration cap, which means that you don't need to enter the lottery. Once you go work for a higher education, a university, you don't need to enter the lottery. You just immediately get the job, provided that your application is legit and then you get approved. The caveat of this is that you don't then get to transfer to a normal company. Normal H1B, you get to transfer your H1B to another employer if you don't like the previous one. But if from a university H1B, because it's exempt, you can't transfer to a normal company. You have to go through the lottery. So that's the only caveat. However, it's a good backup option if you want to just maximize your chances. And the last one I have here is go work for big tech or the big four accounting firms, because they sponsor a lot of H1B. If you could get a job from Amazon, Google, Facebook, or Deloitte, Ernst Young, or anything like that, then your chances of being sponsored for H1B is basically good.
Yeah, I think there's a question actually regarding that, but I think that got answered already. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I'm open to questions afterwards as well. Common pitfalls to avoid when facing stress about immigration in an uncertain time. Okay, the most common pitfall is not planning ahead. That's period. I've heard of my friends who came to the US and their attitude is, I'm going to study something and I'm so excellent, everything will just work out. I'm going to start a $1 billion company and then everything will be solved. That's not going to happen to the majority of you. Some of you might be that good or lucky, but majority of you won't have this option. So do definitely plan ahead. For those of you who are here, you are already planning ahead. You're already way ahead of the other people who aren't doing this kind of research or finding help like this. So congratulations to you. And another common pitfall is that someone will think that they are stuck at their job. There are some sad stories of some Facebook engineers that committed suicide or something, that was then revealing a bigger issue of immigrants in tech industry that are being suppressed because of their immigration status. They basically felt stuck at their job, and just like, what's a good analogy? Like people in abusive relationships are much more likely to be stuck in there and then think they don't have an option out, and less likely to seek help. But people in immigration situations too, myself included, have felt this way. You feel like you just can't get out because you're an immigrant and you don't have as many options. You can't just say to your boss, you're being unreasonable, I don't want to work here. You just can't. I didn't feel like I could do this. But there are definitely options to get out. You're not stuck at your job. You can always transfer. And transfer H1Bs is easier than the first time lottery H1Bs. And you don't have to go through the lottery system again. You could just transfer. And there, it's really important that you educate your new employers about the immigration situation, because most of them are ignorant about H1B. Most of them are ignorant about immigration. They would prefer to go the safe route and hire an American worker. But get them on the phone with an immigration lawyer, or point them to a website that has resources that succinctly explain what this process is. Then they're much more likely to hire you, and then you don't have to be stuck. Let's see, do I need an immigration attorney? Yes. In most cases, you need an immigration attorney, unless you're brilliant and you know everything and you never do anything wrong, which is nobody. So you do need an immigration attorney, and do your research before you find a good immigration attorney. Usually they will explain your situation before charging you. They will sit down and talk to you for at least 15 minutes and listen to your problem, and only charge you after they think they can give you a solution. There are many websites that refer immigration lawyers to you. There's Avo, there is, I wouldn't recommend LegalZoom because they don't have any immigration lawyers that I trust. You can just Google immigration attorney. There is a Immigration Attorneys Association called AILA. You can go on there and they have a list of immigration attorneys. Yeah, do your research. Don't settle for anything that looks shady. And always compare. What will the attorney do for me? The attorney will file your petitions and fill out all the forms for you. Basically, any boring jobs that you don't want to do for yourself, your attorney will do for you. And a lot of the time they should give you additional values, like determining if your institution is accredited. Like some people have a bachelor's degree, but from a university either abroad or not recognized by the US CIS. These attorneys can then find an accreditation company to accredit your degree. And then they could determine if your degree is related to your job or what the prevailing wage is for your position before you file the H1B petition. That's going to be much more helpful to your petition if the first time you file it, it's correct. Like sometimes the job title that you select to file for H1B petition is not ideal in your situation. For example, you are a computer programmer and the application that you submit points you in the junior computer programmer bracket, which is much more likely to be rejected by the H1B officer. Here you can talk to an immigration attorney and they can try to see if they can fit you to a higher level computer programmer to get you a better chance at being admitted or not being approved. They could also answer your RFE timely. There's usually a 30-day time window to anything USCIS sends you. If you sit for yourself, they don't tell you this 30-day time limit very obviously. So having your immigration attorney receive your packages is going to be helpful because they will just get it done timely before the deadline runs out. And also they're your psychological counsel because ideally they've gone through it themselves. They know what to expect and they can comfort you and tell you to chill out. Yeah, that's about it.
Sweet. So I think we can open it up for questions from the public then. I actually have a lot of questions already. So those who have joined, just post your question in the YouTube live chat and we will be answering them serially. So Tony, are you ready? I'm just gonna start shooting questions directly.
Okay. Yes.
All right, sweet.
I'm gonna take a breather and drink some water.
Sounds good. Okay, so I actually have some questions. I have some questions myself. So let me start with this one, which I get a lot, this question that, what if my degree is not related to software development? Would it qualify for H1B?
Okay, so that's a good question. If your degree is not related to the job you're getting, then you will have a hard time with H1B. So what does that relate to boot camp? I can explain it this way. If you go to a boot camp to make your previous degree, to basically complement your previous degree, like for example, you were a physicist and you went to a boot camp and then gave you data science or software engineering skills, and then you're applying for a job position that is related to physics, but also requires skills in software development or data science, then that's no problem, because you're still going into a field that's related to your degree. If you studied art and you came to, and then you learned additional skills in computer software, I think it's relatively easy to find a job that both use your art background and also the new skills that you learned. Do target for those jobs, because if you find a job that's like not related to your background, art, then you're going to have a harder time. So don't think that just because I learned some software engineering skills or data science skills, I can just work for anybody and they will sponsor H1B for me. That's not the case, because you're probably going to fail when the immigration officer review your application.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think you briefly touched that topic, but what are the alternate employment-based immigration options in the US other than H1B?
Yes. So there is O1 visa, which is visa for extraordinary people, basically. There's O1A, which is for artists, entertainers, musicians, or movie people, theater people. And there's O1B for business, engineers, and scientists, a bunch of other excellent workers. The requirements for O1 is a lot higher than the requirements for H1B. You would have to have published something in your field. You would have to have won some award or served as the judge for some awards. And you would have to have peer recognition in your field. Like there's some famous people who came here on O1 visa, like Rihanna or John Oliver. if you're that good, then you're O1. But you don't have to be, or if you won the Nobel Prize, automatically there's an O1 visa for you. But you don't have to be that excellent. I had this misconception that I'd have to have won Olympics or a Nobel Prize in order to qualify for O1, but that's not the case. There are 8 criteria, and you only need to meet 3 of them to qualify yourself as O1. And if you're still an undergrad student, I know undergrad student likes to plan for their future, says nobody ever, and they like challenges, right? They like to think of their future as bright. O1 visa is a great way to plan your future. Just look at those criteria and then try to build yourself towards that. And maybe some of you will get to be that excellent, and that would be great.
Awesome. Yeah, as long as I don't have to be Rihanna, I should. Rihanna is just high bar for me. So there is one question from Noor, which is basically, how complex is the process of going for permanent residency options without applying for H1B? Pros and cons of skipping H1B and going for permanent residency. Do employers go in that route? Is there any change in the rules of CPT for 6 months and OPT 1 year, then extended 1 year? I think
that's a very long question, so I would like to take it apart.
Sure.
First, and if I don't cover it, feel free to contact me and I'll answer your question in person. Individually. So how complex is it to get the permanent residency route without going for H1B? You're basically hurting your own chances, right? H1B is a lottery, and you should just file for the lottery every year and try your chances. You can, in certain cases, file for permanent residency yourself, file for a green card yourself, but really, it's similar to O1. You have to be really excellent there are multiple paths to go to file a green card for yourself. EB1 is one of them, and EB1 is the hardest one. You have to be really, really excellent to file for green card yourself. And there is EB2, there is national waiver, and there is EB3, which is not really available for Indian and Chinese because, well, it is available. It's just a really long waiting time. And EB5, which is for investment, people who are making more than 1.8 million investments or 900,000 investment if in rural countries, in rural areas of the US. Those are generally not available to international students. I wish they were available, but I wasn't rich and that didn't qualify me. But generally you should try to go for H1B every year and try to find an employer that will try you while you're on H1B status. And then the employer is much more likely to petition green card for you. If you haven't tried to work for somebody, it is generally not a good idea to count on anybody to sponsor a green card for you. They're just not going to do that for you. The only exception of that being the EB1, meaning you're really excellent. You're like a Nobel Prize winner. You've published more than 50 scientific articles in academic journals, and then you can petition yourself. Nobody can stop you.
Okay. I think the second question was about CPT for 6. Is there any change in the rules for CPT, or like CPT for 6 months limit and OPT 1 year and then it extended 1 year? So are there any changes in those or only in H1?
Not that I know of. CPT updates for 2020 includes yeah, not that I know of. I would have to look it up because
I think
according to my newsletters, there has been no change. But if there was, I will let you know and then publish something.
Yeah, okay.
I don't give you false information.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. And for everyone who is attending, if we'll try to get as many questions as possible, but we have to obviously end this meeting eventually. So if you have some questions unanswered, definitely feel free to email Tony, and her email is open in the screen. So definitely feel free to get in touch with her. The second question I have is from Rad, which is, am I required to submit all my I-20s during the H1B filing? I have done multiple extensions while completing my bachelor's. I can still to find one of my old I-20s. I still have the latest one with me.
Okay. In the past, when I filed H1B, it was the last one. And my attorneys at the time when I was still a student asked for all of them, but your schools have a record of all your I-20. If you lost any, go back to your school's DSO and then ask for a copy of your I-20. It's a good idea to have all of them just so that immigration officers at the USCIS doesn't poke trouble at you, because sometimes they're assholes and they will poke trouble at you. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll go to the next one. This person, and I think another person asked similar questions. So basically it's with PhD. What are the chances of US PhDs to get selected in their H1 lottery? Another similar question is, again, with PhD students. Will there be any changes for PhD applicants in lottery process like master's student?
So US PhDs, as long as you get it from a accredited university that is either public or private non-for-profit, then you have a much higher chance. I think this year's there's a 15% increase in chance if you have a master's degree or higher than before. I don't off the top of my head know what the actual chance is, but I think it's above 50%. So you have a much higher chance this year if you have a PhD or master's.
Okay, so for immigration purposes, what I am understanding is that master's and PhD is kind of considered similar, like in
master's or above. So master's, PhD included. Yeah. If you're a PhD, you're just as likely as master's. You don't get special additional chances.
Okay, okay, got it. And another question, again, thanks a lot for like doing this, Tony. Like it's a lot of questions and
Oh
like,
yeah, of course.
so, and then one person, Turja, asked me that, is there a way to apply for H1B even if the company do not sponsor? I mean, while working on OPT, can I sponsor myself?
Oh, that's a good question. The short question is yes, but it's going to be very difficult. Generally, you'd have to establish a employee-employer relationship when you sponsor H1B for anyone. If you have a company that you started, you have to show that there is a board of directors that has the ability and power to fire you. Basically, you can't be the only person in the company and sponsor yourself H1B. You have to have somebody in the company with the ability to manage you, tell you what to do, and fire you. So in order to set that up, it's going to be difficult, but it is doable. If you can get people on board and get an immigration attorney that also does business to do this for you, then you can definitely do it. But you need some planning, and you can't just do it off the bat, like within 10 days. That's not practical. But you should talk to me if you seriously consider doing that.
Okay, awesome, awesome. One person who has an interesting YouTube name, YPebFul, I think it's just a username. Anyway,
Okay.
so the question is, when will the lottery results be available?
March 31st. And they might publish it before. It's the first year they've ever done this kind of system, but the official answer is March 31st.
And how long it will take? So this person asked like 4 or 5 questions, and most of them are like smaller questions. So how long will it take to process the H1B if approved?
If approved. So you have 90 days to submit your petition, right? So if you get it in earlier, then you'll get it faster. There is a premium processing option, which is $1,440. If you pay this amount of dollars, then it's 15-day premium processing. If you don't, then it's a lot slower.
Okay. And if the company one is working for, so basically, if some, I think the formatting is a little bit interesting here. So basically, if some company applies for someone's H1B, then is there any rule that they cannot switch to some other company before the H1B is approved? Like, is there any minimum duration they have to stick with their primary employer who applied for their H1B?
Oh, I'm not sure which question you're asking. So multiple employers can sponsor you at once. You can get multiple tickets. They just can't be related or fraud. So like you can't, for example, you have a company sponsor you, and then a subsidiary of this company or related sister company also want to boost this company's chance of hiring you, and they also submit a ticket. That's fraud. But if 2 separate unrelated companies want to sponsor, you can totally get sponsored by different companies. That's one interpretation of your question. The other one is, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, the question is formatted a little bit like I'm not able to understand it completely, but I think what he meant is that, are they like, is there any like guideline on, is there any limit or minimum limit of like months they have to work for the company which filed for H1B for them? That's what
a minimum duration before transfer H1B.
Yeah.
Let me search for it in my library.
Sure.
I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay.
I believe you can definitely transfer out of your H1B. I don't know of any minimum limit, like minimum. That's a good question. Like, how many days must you work for the first employer before you can transfer out?
Okay.
Yeah, like ask me in person. I'll give you an answer after I do some research.
Okay. Another question is, this is a very interesting question. So some companies offer that they will process the H1B first, and if that gets approved, then they will offer projects for them to work in W2. is that a valid offer, or is that like a shady or fake company? So that's the question.
So some companies are offering to register for H1B lottery for them before giving them actual work. Is that what it is?
Yeah, something like that.
It depends on the company. If the company's really informed about the new H1B change, it makes sense for them to make this kind of offer, right? I won't give you any job unless you won the lottery, right? That makes sense, because if you don't win the lottery, their offer is automatically rescinded anyway. But it depends. It's advisable to be cautious about employers who give this kind of offer, but it does make sense.
Okay. One more question, I think, which kind of has been answered before, that which has a higher chance of getting picked: big tech employers like the top 4 or 5, as you said, or mid-level companies? Is there any preference?
Theoretically, it's a blind lottery, and they have equal chance. But in practice, the immigration officers favor the big tech. They just have a much higher chance of approval without an RFE.
Okay, that's a solid. Some questions from one of our students, Amit, is that if someone loses job after 6 months of his initial OPT, how long he can remain unemployed?
In your 6 months on initial, your OPT is usually 12 months, right? So it depends on how much time do you have left on your OPT. Your OPT doesn't require it, and it also depends on if it's a STEM OPT, after extended it or not. Because if it's STEM OPT, then you need to have an employer. If it's regular OPT, you don't need an employer yet. You have usually a 60 days period when you can be unemployed.
Okay, yeah, I think that's the
definitely talk to a lawyer about your specific situation, to get a specific answer.
Okay, another question from the same person: if someone uses OPT extension for 3 years, like OPT and STEM OPT, and then goes for PhD, will he get extension for the STEM, or?
Yeah, so if this person has a lower tier degree, like for example, if this person has a master's or bachelor's degree before they go for PhD, then the leveling up in degree will give you additional OPT. But if you have if you had a PhD before and you go for another PhD, then you don't get any more. So the rule of thumb is, if you're getting a higher degree, then you get more. If you don't, if you stay at the same level, so like if you got a bachelor and you got another bachelor, or if you got a master and you got another master, then you don't get more.
Okay. This is a new person, Ansari. His question is that, do we employee need to apply for just EB2 or its subsections: advanced degree, exceptional ability, national interest waiver?
It depends on your situation. You need to select a specific one, and the more specific you choose, the higher chance of winning that petition.
Okay, and the second question is, what are the qualifying criteria just to apply for EB3? I am guessing 2 years working experience in the related field. Not sure. So that's the question.
Ask this person to talk to me, because EB3 is not involved in today's Q&A, and EB3 is much more complicated. You generally have to have 2 years training or experience in the job that you're getting on an EB2 visa. Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay.
Again, talk to me in person.
Okay, yeah, Ansari, just feel free to reach out to Tony. Her email is on the screen, so get in touch. How risky is the H1 renewal process for the number one, like same job, and number two is if you switch the job, like, so how risky is the renewal process? That's the question.
Renewal process. Renewal process is generally not very risky, as long as you show your recent payroll and then you give enough evidence. that your job is legitimate, and then you're not at risk of running out of your status, or then as long as you show that you've been on the same career path trajectory, then you should be fine.
Okay. We can maybe like take two more questions and then we'll slowly start wrapping up. So first, so one question is that, can I switch industry H1B to academic H1B back to industry H1B? It's asked by Farzana. Yeah.
You cannot. You must file for the lottery. You must petition for. So this question is what I mentioned before, that of the caveat of going to work for a CAP exempt higher education institution. You will have to enroll in the lottery again. You will have to be picked. You can't just transfer without the lottery. That's not a path to game the system. Basically, you can't.
Okay.
But you can petition for H1B again and then enroll in the lottery and try your luck.
Okay, makes sense. This is the last question we'll take for tonight, but definitely, guys, feel free to reach out in email and stay like 5 minutes longer after this, because we're going to talk a little bit about basically Imingo and what Tony is trying to do in her company. So last question by Rashik: is there any minimum salary requirement for H1B? Does it vary by state? So that's the question.
Yes, it does. It does vary by state. Basically, you have to show that your job title or your job position pays you the prevailing wage of the area that you're in, not just the state, but by county. Like, for example, if you're in Manhattan, you get paid differently than if you're Brooklyn, etc. Like, there's a website you go to, Bureau of Labor Statistics, or your local labor statistics website in your state. Then you can put in your job code, and then you can look up the level 1, 2, 3, 4 wage, usually an hourly wage, and then you can determine if you're getting paid enough to qualify yourself.
Okay. At this point, Tony, I'm curious to hear a little bit about Imingo. If you can, you have, thanks a lot again for doing this. A lot of questions. I learned a lot myself as well. So like, what are you guys doing at Imingo, and how can this be helpful for our students, or basically any immigrant?
Right. So we are a immigration tech startup, which is a fairly new thing. We are trying to do something that is different from the traditional law firm model, where you go to a lawyer and then the lawyer charges you a huge amount of money, and then everything is done behind the scenes. We're trying to give you tools that you can just use right away to check if you're eligible for something, or to see like what is your prevailing wage, for example, in your state. Basically, we try to compile a lot of data and information from the internet and from the USCIS that you can just access in a user-friendly way. We are building friendly UI and UX to try to make immigration accessible to all. And we're trying to do this in different languages, starting from my native language, which is Chinese, so that when you decide to pick an immigration path, you can select a path and fill in some information using our dashboard. And then the PDF or all the immigration documents will be automatically generated. You don't ever have to fill any PDF. You don't ever have to worry about the paperwork. And then if you want, we can refer you to an immigration attorney that will review your application at a lower rate, because most of the paperwork is done already. So like, your immigration lawyer doesn't have to spend a lot of time reviewing or filling out PDF for you. They could just spend that time strategizing for you. So that is our dream, or our goal when we set out to build this platform 6 months ago. And it's still going, and we are slowly rolling out more features in beta. We welcome anyone to try our demos and give us any constructive feedback. Our goal is to build tools that'll make immigrants' life easier in this country. Basically, something that I've wanted when I was a student. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, like this honestly, the first time I heard about this, Tony, from you, I that's the first thing I thought, that like this will be in like first thing I thought that I wish it was available when I was going through all this
Yeah,
pain.
exactly.
This will be incredibly helpful for, I mean, this the whole, there is just so much confusion, and just you guys just are removing all those things and just
We're
handling all the
trying.
paperwork.
Yeah.
And I think this will be very, very helpful. So, I mean, I'll just kind of wrap up today's webinar by saying that we actually have a new batch coming, which is starting 9th of this month. As I said in the beginning, that we are a coding and job hunting bootcamp. So we give you end-to-end support from teaching you the right skills which will get you hired, and also making you job market ready. And we are hoping that we are starting this partnership with Imingo, where we'll be also providing like legal support. So like that's pretty much it for everyone who attended. Tony, thanks a lot for doing this for us.
Thank you for hosting.
Yeah, do you have anything for the attendees? Any last thoughts or
Good
advice?
luck. It's a tough journey. I wish you all the luck. Definitely reach out to anyone who've been through your journey, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Oftentimes planning ahead and help is what gets you through that last hurdle. Yeah.
Sweet. Thanks a lot, Tony. And to everyone who is watching, we'll see you guys next month with some new topic, and have a good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.